In today's video, I'm going to be comparing all of the Galaxy A series devices in the last 4 years. So of course, we have the Galaxy A15 versus the A14 versus the A13 versus the A12. Stay tuned. Alright everyone, hopefully you guys are having a good day. Hopefully everyone is safe out there. Of course, the Galaxy A series has been amongst one of the most popular series of phones, and more accurately, the most popular budget phone series to date. I mean, year after year, the Galaxy A15, the A14, the A13 are just some of the top selling phones globally. So these are super popular phones. And of course, in the last 6-7 years of running this channel, we've been seeing, a ton of different A series phones coming, even from like the Galaxy A11. So in this video, we're going to be going down the line of the last 4 years, A15 all the way down to the A12, and we're pretty much going to tell you the differences between these phones, tell you, of course, which one is better, talk about their improvements, and of course, we have a full-on camera comparison with photos and videos from all of these devices as well. So let's get straight into this video. Now, I think the first thing that I want to get into is the bodies of these phones. So of course, going down the line of each generation, we have the Galaxy A12 right here. And as you guys can see, this is definitely a 2020 design or 2019 design. As you guys can see, we have this plastic back right here that just kind of transitions into this textured back right here. And of course, we have that square camera module that we saw on pretty much every phone, like the iPhones and the other Samsung flagship devices during this year. And of course, they did the same with the Galaxy A12. Honestly, I don't think this looks bad at all. Actually, during the time, I probably thought this looked quite decent, but compared to the other devices that we see right here, I think this is definitely kind of an older design. Still cool though. Definitely like it, and it's made out of a full unibody plastic design. Next up right here, the Galaxy A13. This is somewhat of a plain Jane when it released. Of course, we don't have any textured back or anything like that, but we do now have the hole punch cameras on the back right here. Of course, we have that iconic Samsung logo at the bottom right there, which we're going to see on all of these generations of devices, but this is just going to be pretty much a big slab of black plastic. I'm not sure if they had any other colors other than black. Maybe they had one other color. Pretty plain Jane design right here. Nothing too out of the ordinary. Next up, we have the Galaxy A14 5G, which really didn't hold up too well. As far as condition wise, there are so many scratches and stuff that got stuck in the grooves. But when this phone did come out, I actually thought this looked really cool. And of course, the entirety of this back is textured. So we have a bunch of small grooves on the back of this phone. As you guys can hear, it sounds like I'm scratching a record. But when this came out, thought it looked really good. But condition-wise, this did not hold up. And it also held that camera module design. So we do have those 3 hole punches for the 3 separate cameras on here. But other than the condition-wise of this device, I think when this came out, this was one of the better looking A series devices. And last but not least, the latest and greatest Galaxy A15 right here. I think this was my favorite out of all of the devices' designs. Of course, we have that translucent back that goes from black to blue right here that honestly looks really cool. And of course, we can clean this back and you're good as new. And we did hold the triple camera module hole punch setup right here, so we held the same design all the way back from the Galaxy A13. I think the design of this device is my favorite out of all the 4. And this device is also going to be made out of plastic. So not some of the most premium materials when these A series phones were built. Alright guys, so as far as the size of these devices, the Galaxy A15 is going to be 6.5 inches, A14 is 6.6 inches, as it's going to be the biggest phone out of all of these. And the last two, the A13 and A12, are actually going to be 6.5 inches as well. Getting into the resolution of these devices, the Galaxy A15 is going to have a full HD display. It is going to look the best out of all of these, and I'm sure you guys have noticed already that this display is actually much brighter than the A13 and the A12. So there is a huge improvement on the display between then and now. So really happy about that display bump up. But as I said, full HD display on the A15, full HD on the Galaxy A14. And then actually on the A13, we had only a 720p display, and on the A12, we had a 720p display as well. Now, the big bump that we got over from the Galaxy A12 from that 720p display is we actually had a 90 hertz refresh rate instead of a 60 hertz refresh rate that we had on the A12. So going over from the A12 to the A13, we got bumped up to a 90 hertz refresh rate, so a much smoother animation when going through your interface and watching videos and playing video games and all that type of stuff. It's going to be smoother, of course, than the 60 hertz that we received on the A12. Now, going over to the Galaxy A14, same thing, 90 hertz refresh rate. I would say this display is a lot brighter, and it looks much better than the Galaxy A13 in my honest opinion. And the colors, I think the colors and saturation just look much better than the Galaxy A13 side by side. Let's go ahead and put these up. It's really hard to tell, but in real life it definitely looks better. A13 still did a pretty good job though. And then going over to the Galaxy A15, this is the first time that we got Super AMOLED technology in a base A series device, and this of course had a 90 hertz refresh rate on this device as well. The rest of them though, IPS LCD. Also, getting into the screen to body ratio, I bet you guys can't guess which one had the best screen to body ratio. It beat these other devices just by a tiny bit. So the Galaxy A12 actually had the best screen to body ratio with a 85.8% screen to body ratio. And I think that was in part by, of course, that tiny little teardrop notch that we got right there. So really nice to see that the A12 still had a pretty big screen on it back in the day. As for the Galaxy A13, we had an 81% screen to body ratio. The Galaxy A14 had the worst. This was an 80% screen to body ratio. And of course, the Galaxy A15 had the second best at about 85% as well. It was 84.49%. All right, guys, so getting into the processors on these devices, of course, the Galaxy A15, we have the MediaTek Dimensity 6100 Plus processor inside this device. The Galaxy A14 and A13 actually had the same processor. They had the Dimensity 700. And of course, the Galaxy A12, the oldest phone on our list right here, had the MediaTek Helio P35. So, of course, the best processor goes over to the A15. It did suck, however, that when the A14 came out, we had the same processor inside of there. Also, as far as the gigabytes of RAM we received in these devices, all of these devices across the board had 4 gigabytes of RAM, and only one of these devices, which is the Galaxy A15, had 128 gigabytes of internal storage. The rest of these, from the A14 to the A12, had 64 gigabytes of internal storage. So that was one of the biggest differences I saw from this device to these other devices right here. Other than the camera, of course, and we'll take a look at that later. But yeah, very big improvement from the Galaxy A14 to the A15. Just double the storage right there. Great to see it. And with all these devices, we can expand our memory via micro SD card. All right, guys, so getting into the software on these devices, the Galaxy A12 did launch with Android 10.0, and we now have Android 12 on the A12. Going to the A13, we have Android 13 right now. We do have another software update, I'm sure, coming for this later on if you guys haven't got it already, but this is currently on 13, and when this device came out, we had Android 11. Going to the Galaxy A14, currently we have Android 14, which is beautiful to see. And we did actually start out with Android 13 on this device. Going over to the Galaxy A15, soon to get Android 15, we are currently running Android 14 UI 6.1 on this device. But if you guys have any of these devices, let me know in the comment section down below what software you're currently running and what UI version you're currently running as well. One very consistent thing that we saw on the base A series devices right here is the A15 through the A12 right here all had 5,000 milliamp batteries, and overall the battery lives were pretty good. I think the worst, in my opinion, honestly, was the Galaxy A14. This one, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's a faulty battery, always drained pretty quickly, and it was usually harder to charge. And the A15 so far for me has been the best. And as far as the charging rates that we saw on these devices, from the A12 to the A14, we actually saw a 15 watt charging rate with a wired charge, and the Galaxy A15 actually got 10 more watts than the others at 25 watt fast charging experience. So the Galaxy A15 has been the fastest to charge so far. One beautiful thing about all of these devices definitely has to be that from the A12 to the A15, they have kept the 3.5mm headphone jack. So for all the audiophiles out there who enjoy the base A series devices, I'm sure you guys have been thankful that they have kept the audio jack right there. And I'm hoping that they save it for the Galaxy A16. However, that may be one of the first devices from the series that gets that removed. Hopefully we don't see that though. Alright guys, so getting into the cameras on these devices, starting with the Galaxy A12, the oldest one of the bunch right here, the grandfather or the father of all of these devices. On the rear, we have a quad camera setup right here. Our main camera is going to be a 48 megapixel shooter. Our secondary is going to be a 5 megapixel ultra wide. Our third is going to be a 2 megapixel macro. And our fourth is going to be a 2 megapixel depth camera. As for our front facing camera, we do have an 8 megapixel shooter, and this device is capable of recording up to 1080p at 30 frames per second for the front and the rear. On to the Galaxy A13 for our camera setup. We now have a triple camera setup right here, as you guys can see. Our main camera is going to be a 50 megapixel PDAF camera. Our secondary is going to be a 2 megapixel macro, and our third is going to be that 2 megapixel depth camera as well. We also have a front facing camera that's rated at 5 megapixels, and for the front and rear facing camera, nothing really has changed for the video. We can shoot at 1080p 30 frames per second, just like the Galaxy A12. Moving on to the Galaxy A14, on this dirty A14 5G, our main camera is going to be a 50 megapixel PDAF shooter, our secondary is going to be a 2 megapixel macro, and our third is going to be a 2 megapixel depth camera. Again, capable of recording at 1080p 30 frames per second on the front and rear facing camera. However, our front facing camera is now rated at 13 megapixels instead of 5. And of course, last but not least, we have the Galaxy A15 right here. This has held the same triple camera setup from the A14. Our main camera is going to be a 50 megapixel autofocus. Our secondary is going to be a 5 megapixel ultra wide, so we get an ultra wide instead of that depth information camera. And of course, our third camera is going to be a 2 megapixel macro camera on this device. This of course is capable of 1080p at 30 frames per second, either on the front or the rear facing camera. And for that front facing camera, we're going to be rated at 13 megapixels as well. We're now going to go out with all of these devices and we're going to shoot some videos. We're going to shoot some photos on these devices as well. All that I ask from you guys is let me know in the comment section down below. Rate from 1 through 4, okay? So 1 being the best, 4 being the least. Each camera that you think should be in that order. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing after I go ahead and shoot some video and photos. Alright guys, so this is the Galaxy A12, 1080p 30 frames per second we're shooting at right now. And the camera looks like it's holding up well in the viewfinder so far. But yeah, 1080p 30 frames per second. This is the highest resolution that it's going to go up to for the front facing camera. Looks decent so far though. Alright guys, so this is 1080p 30 frames per second. This is the highest it goes up to for the front facing camera. And this is how this is looking. Maybe a little less washed out, but stabilization has definitely got better from the Galaxy A12 to the A13. In my opinion, as far as I see in the viewfinder. Let me know what you guys think though. Alright guys, so this is the Galaxy A14 5G. This is kind of looking like it's glitching out a bit. I don't know why this is happening. I know that it's updating the software right now. I think we're going to UI 6.1. It's not currently updating it. I paused it. But the color is looking much better than the A13 and the A12. Those looked a bit washed out. Let me know what you guys think though. Definitely know there's going to be a huge jump from the A14 to the A15 though. I feel like the lighting looks much better and the colors are much more colorful for sure. Alright guys, so this is the Galaxy A15 5G and this just looks so much better. This was a huge jump, especially for the front facing camera, from the Galaxy A14 5G to the Galaxy A15. Colors are much better. Clarity is much better. I can see different like wrinkles and stuff in my face and hair follicles, as you guys can see. So pretty crazy stuff right here. Pretty big jump from the A14 to the A15. They did a really good job on this camera, kind of bringing a more premium type of sensor to the Galaxy A15 or to a budget phone, honestly. So yeah, this is looking a lot better. I'm really optimistic about the Galaxy A16. I think we're gonna see a lot more improvement right there, but this is just leagues ahead of the other devices that we looked at today. So A15 is looking really good. All right guys, so 1080p 30 frames per second on the rear facing camera, as we can see right here. Let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit right here. Obviously this phone is now a few years old. I believe this was a budget phone in what, 2020? Crazy how fast everything is going by, but we're gonna be checking out the Galaxy A13 next. This is how this is looking though. Now we have the rear facing camera right here on the Galaxy A13. Again, I think stabilization is definitely looking much better. Go ahead and zoom in a bit. Let me know if you guys think the A13 was a pretty big jump from the A12. And this is the rear facing camera on the Galaxy A14 5G. Colors are much better, a lot less washed out for sure. It looks like the stabilization has improved from the A13. Let's go ahead and zoom into that Blaze Pizza sign. Colors are definitely looking more true to life for sure. Again, not the craziest quality in the world. As for a rear facing camera, we can go up to 1080p 30 frames per second. Yeah. And for our rear facing camera, we have 1080p at 30 frames per second for our top resolution. As you guys can see, I think this is looking a lot better as well. Stabilization is looking much better. The colors are looking a lot less washed out. And yeah, really like that they don't go to like the higher frame rates like 1080p 60 frames per second or 4K, because there are a lot of budget phones that do that, and they don't need to be doing all that because it doesn't perform well. So I feel like Samsung made the right move on just capping these devices out at 1080 30 frames per second. You just need to do that well, and then you can start moving on to the other stuff. But as far as everything looks, this is nice to see that this is the standard for budget phone cameras now. And I've even seen like Motorola doing a lot better as well. But for a device that's $199, this is looking a lot better than we looked like 4 years ago. So yeah, Samsung did a good job on this. Alright guys, so those were all the photos and all of the videos that I shot on these devices. As far as like going from best to worst, I would say the Galaxy A15 is surely the best video and photo shooting device. Next, I'd say the Galaxy A14. And for whatever reason, I would say the Galaxy A12 was a little bit more solid than the A13 on the photos in particular, because they seemed a little less washed out than the Galaxy A13. I don't know if you guys saw it or not. Let me know in the comment section down below, but I think the A12 had some better pictures, particularly on the rear-facing camera, than the A13. But anyways, guys, this was the Galaxy A15 versus A14 versus A13 versus A12. And I would say the winner of all these devices, and the most improved, of course, pretty easy to say, the Galaxy A15 is the granddaddy of them all. I would say this is the most solid base series A series device that we've had to date. And if you guys have the Galaxy A15, I'm sure you guys already know this, but for the $199 price tag, this is such a solid phone, and I've been enjoying it so far, and I'm sure a lot of you have been as well. Again, rank in the comment section down below your favorite A series devices out of these four. And yeah, start some conversations. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and drop a like. And if you guys want to see more videos just like this one, go ahead and subscribe and hit that notification bell to be notified every time I upload a new video. This has been some fun from TechRight. Peace out, Tech Gang.